Hello and welcome. It's 6 p.m. India time or 12:30 GMT, and it's 8:30 in the evening in Hong Kong, where the ongoing protests are increasing the tensions between the local government and the Chinese government. In just a matter of days, the protests will enter their fourth month, and there's still no solution in sight. Today, the protesters formed a human chain along 3 railway lines across the city to draw international attention to their cause. The campaign, called the Hong Kong Way, is inspired by a large-scale demonstration 30 years ago in the 3 former republics of the Soviet Union. On the other hand, a woman protester who was arrested by the Hong Kong police has alleged that she was abused by 2 women officers while in custody. Listen in.
喺搜身期間，我問佢點解連內衣褲都要除晒。個女警好大聲同我講，因為你係犯，你犯咗法就要除晒搜身。
And even chartered accountants are now rallying in support of the pro-democracy protest, becoming the latest profession to back the movement publicly. A few thousand accountants gathered in a city square and marched to government headquarters carrying signs with the protesters' demands.
其實我相信我哋業界嘅所有嘅人呢，都係比較沉默啲嘅，亦都係比較靜啲嘅，因為要靜呢先至可以做好嗰盤數。咁但係今日我哋都按捺不住，因為真係等咗好耐，2個月有多嘅時間都未能夠有任何嘅政府有任何嘅回應。
Thousands of kilometers away in Germany, protesters gathered outside the Chinese embassy with banners that read "Respect human rights" to show solidarity with the ongoing protests. Wearing helmets and mock eye patches with fake blood, the protesters called for the German government to take up a clear stance and show support for the protests.
Ich kann eventuell nicht mehr nach Hongkong reisen, aber für meine Familie und meine Freunde in Hongkong, die haben dann keine Freiheit mehr. Die können sie sich nicht mehr frei in U-Bahn fahren, können sie sich nicht in den Supermarkt gehen ohne Angst. Jeden Tag auf der Straße gehen, es gibt schon Angst. Man muss jederzeit Helm haben und Maske haben, sonst kommt die Polizei. Jeden Tag müssen wir vor Tränengas Angst haben. Das geht nicht.
Meanwhile, the Hong Kong police has said that the personal information of more than 1,600 officers and their families has been illegally disclosed online starting in June. Even the photographs, schools and the class of their children have been put online, which has led to some family members receiving threats.
非法披露一啲資料，根據香港法例咧，就私隱條例裏邊咧，其實好清楚咁樣列明咧，如果你係冇得到資料使用者嘅同意，而去披露一啲個人資料，而係令到當事人係蒙受一啲心理嘅傷害咧，呢個係違法嘅，最高監禁係5年嘅，係啦。咁所以咧，其實即係都想提翻醒市民咧，唔會係因為你網上做一啲犯法嘅行為咧，就唔會得到法律嘅制裁。
And WION Lisbon's very own Bruce Harrison now joins me live from Hong Kong for the very latest on the situation in Hong Kong. Bruce, thank you for joining us on WION Lisbon. Now, give us a sense or a flavor of what's happening around you as we speak, especially at a time when you're looking forward ahead to the 12th straight week of protests starting tomorrow.
Well, tonight, another peaceful demonstration here in Hong Kong. You can see behind me, the people here have formed a human chain. Some are still linking hands. It started a good 40 minutes ago. And this is a spin-off, the 1989 Baltic Way, an event in which 2 million people across the 3 Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, joined hands to let the world know their desire for independence from the former Soviet Union. And the people here tonight decided that this was a way they could try and grab the world's attention as well for their freedom drive, their concerns about democracy here in Hong Kong. And as you mentioned, yes, it is the 12th week of these protests that began in June. It's important mentioning last Sunday's rally. Many thought that would be a turning point in events here towards a more peaceful direction, perhaps fewer clashes between the police and the demonstrators. But it was only just Wednesday this week that we did see some violence return. So now we're here on Friday night, 3 days later, and it's a peaceful event, holding hands, singing songs about revolution and freedom. And most importantly, what I already said, many people here told me they want to grab the world's attention so people know what's going on in Hong Kong. People know their fears about what they say is their eroding democracy, the loss of their autonomy under mainland China.
And very quickly, Bruce, you spoke about last weekend's rather peaceful protests. Do you think the protests, the 12-week-long protests, have reached a tipping point yet, especially given fears that the Chinese army is standing by in Shenzhen to make a move any moment they would like to? I'm afraid we've lost that link with Bruce Harrison in Hong Kong. We'll try to get that link up and going in just a bit. But these are the visuals of the latest protest from Hong Kong, where protesters formed a human chain to revisit the 30th anniversary of the protests called the Human Way, to protest against the occupation by the Soviets. All right, the visuals on your screens right now are from today in Hong Kong, where protesters formed a human chain. And these are the visuals from those protests in Hong Kong. Remember, we are heading for the 12th straight weekend of protests starting tomorrow. And as Bruce was pointing out, the protests last weekend remained by and large peaceful, but one can never be sure, especially given fears that the Chinese army is standing by across the strait in Shenzhen to make a move when Beijing tells them to. All right, I'm told we will be able to go back to Bruce momentarily, who is standing by in Hong Kong. We're trying to fix that video link with Bruce there. And as I was discussing with Bruce, the protests have remained by and large peaceful for the last week or more. But one can never be sure, especially given the fears expressed by many countries around the world, that Beijing may tell its military to move in to quell the protest, which will enter the 12th straight weekend tomorrow. And I finally have Bruce back with me live from Hong Kong. Sorry for that disturbance, Bruce, but coming back to the discussion we were having before we lost that link with you, I was asking you, the protests have remained by and large peaceful over the last weekend, but what are the fears expressed in Hong Kong and abroad as we speak, given the fact that the Chinese army is standing by in Shenzhen to make a move the moment Beijing tells them to?
That's true. We've seen the videos and the satellite images of paramilitary vehicles and troops massed at the border. But I don't think that's really at this time impacting the decisions the demonstrators here are making. Their fight really still is with the Hong Kong government. Of course, they know that Beijing plays a role in decision-making within the Hong Kong government. In particular, the selection of the leader of Hong Kong, the chief executive. Right now, it happens to be Carrie Lam. But ultimately, the demonstrators are going to continue to raise their demands, 5 key demands, with the Hong Kong government and take the fight to them. Most want to do it peacefully. Many of the people here tonight told me because of some of the radical action taken by certain protesters, they want to use tonight as an opportunity to show the world that peace is the #1 priority, and through peaceful means they can resolve this standoff between the Hong Kong government and the demonstrators. And I'll say again, ultimately, I don't think they're looking to the border and saying these troops are massed here. We should slow down our actions. If anything, perhaps it's encouraging people to take more peaceful actions here, hopefully that don't descend into chaos and violence, so the world continues to watch and take interest into what Hong Kongers fear the most and the loss of their autonomy. That's why tonight is happening. They see this as an opportunity on the anniversary of the Baltic Way to raise awareness for their concerns, regardless of what's taking place at the border.
And Bruce, I want to come to you one more time before I let go of you. Now, I'm hearing the sounds of protests happening behind you as we speak. And you referred to Carrie Lam and the demand for the protesters. Now, I want to ask you a very pointed question. Who do you think is going to blink first, Carrie Lam or the protesters? And more importantly, what happens if neither of them blinks?
That's the question everyone keeps asking, and unfortunately, I don't think there's a concrete or a black and white answer to offer. Just this week, Carrie Lam had a press conference after that large rally on Sunday that started at Victoria Park and ended in a peaceful march. And the demonstrators and the organizers of some of these movements really put the pressure on the government and said, this is your window. It's a rare window of peace for you to meet some of our demands. And Carrie Lam simply didn't do that. She did maybe take a step further in that direction by offering some ideas about how the government could meet with different sectors of society to try and understand the root cause of this issue. But once again, she tiptoed around the 5 key demands protesters want, including an independent investigation into police violence, the full withdrawal of this controversial extradition bill. And from the people I talk to day in and day out, until those demands are met, they say they're not going to break. So what will push them to break, it's unclear right now. And I think a lot of people expected the Hong Kong government before the demonstrators to meet some of these demands. I think some of the protesters expected that, frankly. But now, because the stalemate has taken place so long, it really doesn't seem like either side is going to budge. And that's where that looming threat of the PLA, the People's Liberation Army from mainland China, does become a bit more frightening for people here. But ultimately, the movement is going to continue into this weekend, and no end in sight. I've said this before.
Indeed, as Bruce is saying, there's no end in sight of the protests in Hong Kong, but who will blink first? The world is waiting and watching. On that note, Bruce Harrison in Hong Kong, thank you so much for that update. Appreciate it.